Total Schmidt Show Season 3 is upon us. Tune in every week. I talk to entertainers from all over the world. Singers, dancers, comics, musicians, drummers, blah, blah, blah. All kinds. Techs, even some cruise directors. Most of the entertainers I talk to work on cruise ships. If you ever wanted to know what entertainers do, how they get through their day, any of the behind-the-scenes stuff about entertaining, we'll talk about that stuff here, as well as we'll delve into some of the entertainers and some of their works, some of their albums coming up, some of the things they've done in the past, things you can look forward to in the future. All that stuff you can catch here on Total Schmidt Show. But either way, get yourself a pizza, a beer, some bourbon, light up a cigar, or some sort of joint, or whatever type of crutch or vice you need to get through the evening, and sit back and enjoy whatever it is I put together this week on Total Schmidt Show. Hey, thanks for tuning in to Total Schmidt Show. It's Tuesday. It's time to talk to another entertainer. If you're listening on the podcast, thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it. I would appreciate it more if you subscribed. Click whatever you got to click to subscribe to the podcast. It's on all the platforms. If you're listening to it, you already know that right now. If you're watching the podcast, you already subscribed to the YouTube channel. You already follow the website, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for tuning in and for being here. I appreciate it. Feel free to follow me on social medias at Mr. Lenny Schmidt on all platforms. Ajai Sanders is with me today, comic who I have never met. She's awesome. We worked together this week. She was nice enough to sit down and do the podcast. She was in LA around the same time I was when I started out. I started out in '88. She was around the same time. She worked down there at the Hollywood clubs, the Crenshaw area. She was doing shows there. She worked on Def Comedy Jam quite a bit. She was also on Different World, tons of sitcom work. And now I get to see her do her thing on the cruise ships. Another pro, which I love working with. Comics, been around a bit. She's got a great. We're very similar in a lot of ways. She's very present on stage. It's very cool to talk to her. It's very enlightening, and we had a great conversation, and I learned a lot about her. So sit back and enjoy my conversation with Ajai Sanders.
I don't like being too cold.
I could throw in a sweater and I'm okay.
Yeah.
I can't sleep when it's too hot, though.
I guess I'm in the middle, too, because, like, now I don't like being too hot either because I'm, like, totally fanning covers. And so, yeah, true. I just want to be comfortable. But anyway, I'm okay.
Okay. Well, plus the older I get, I notice I need to be warmer.
Yeah.
I'm bringing sweaters with me
everywhere. You got to keep those joints moist and lubricated.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Everywhere I'm cold. Mm-hmm. You're like, what's wrong with you? I need a sweater.
The blood starts to, like, sort of slow down.
I guess so, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, we can talk about anything bad about a line. I don't want, I'll pull out, or I don't want to talk about. You know what I mean?
About what?
Cruise lines. You know what I mean?
No, I don't have anything negative.
Yeah. So we try to generally keep it positive, and I really like talking about the show, what you think on stage, how you put it together. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a resume, but we just kind of talk about traveling. You're in. This is my first time meeting you. That's cool. How long you been with Carnival?
I started working in 2019. Mary, right? Yeah. Mm. So I got in
before COVID crap.
Yeah. So I worked for about 6 months, and then the shutdown happened.
There's a lot of people that I just met recently. The guy I worked with last week was the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And but yeah, they got hired in 2019, and then everything
shut down a year later. Yeah.
Right.
So, but it was cool because I got a chance to do other things. Like I did my own podcast with a bunch of comedians. Well, so how it started was I just called a lot of people and said, hey, I'm doing a Zoom room. Mm-hmm. And so the Zoom room turned into a podcast called Multiple Personalities. And it was just me and four or five other comedians. That's how Vince and I became really close. And then Thea Vidal came on once, and I had Kid from Kid and Play on, and Flex Alexander. Like we had a lot of my celebrity friends, if you will, showed up, and it was fun. And so Bob Sumner from Def Comedy Jam, one of the producers of Def Comedy Jam, the guy that actually hired me to do Def Jam, like he was on. And so he was like, do you remember you was on with Bernie Mac? I was like, no, I was too nervous. I don't remember anything about that except I just wanted to get through it and not fail.
You get to work with Bernie Mac?
Yeah.
That's
and so
fucking awesome.
we were on the same show, and it was crazy. I remember I I did well, but then when he came on, it just felt like the building was about to fall down, because the laughter was just that high. And I was like, who the fuck is this? What's going on? And I walked out and he was just destroying the entire theater. It was fabulous.
There's a documentary on Chicago comedy. Have you seen it? A friend of mine did it.
All jokes aside, Raymond Lambert or somebody else?
It's Michael Alexander and Scott Perlman put it together. I forgot what it's called. I don't like the name of it. I can't remember the name. I'll figure it out real quick. You know what? But anyway, it talks about it brings up Bernie. When I early on in my career, I didn't know who Bernie was, and when I was doing a club in Lyons, and this is right after Ali Leroy split from his duo. He was in a group called Mary Wong, I think it was called.
I know Ali.
Yeah, and I met Ali at the Comedy Boom. And he was just starting out, and he was asking me advice. He was just starting out doing solo stand-up. And I told him some stuff, and he mentioned Bernie Mac. I go, who's Bernie Mac? And he looked at me like I was a fucking alien.
Yeah,
right? And I
what
go,
do
I have
you
no idea.
mean?
But the thing the Chicago documentary points out is how segregated the comedy in Chicago was.
Yeah.
Like Bernie and the comics from All Jokes Aside and the clubs in the South Side, Zanies wouldn't let. It was hard for them to get in those main rooms.
Yeah.
And there was always a weird justification, weird reason, but Bernie crushed everywhere. Like everywhere. So that video from the Apollo is legendary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I would love to have an opportunity just to meet that guy, just to work with him. That's good for you. That's great. That is really cool.
And then one of my good friends, Kalita Smith, played his wife on the Bernie Mac show. And so one day she had just invited me down. I went on the set to visit, and he was just a gentleman, a complete, utter gentleman. And he wasn't, what I loved the most about him was that he knew, like he lived inside of himself. Like he wasn't caught up in the Hollywood game.
Right.
He wasn't, he didn't believe his own hype. You know what I mean?
Man, that's cool. We were talking about that a little bit the other night.
Yeah.
About the whole.
Yeah. And I'd be like, oh God, Bernie, this is awesome. What a great show this is. And he was like, he'd always say, come on, man, AJ, you know what it is. And I'd be like, yep, I know what it is. And he was just and we didn't know each other very well. Like we weren't, I was closer to people like Tommy Davidson, Steve White, Martin Lawrence, those guys. Like we were more of we had more of a camaraderie than Bernie and I did, but Bernie treated me as if I was an old friend. I think he treated everybody that way. And
I heard really great things about Out of the Loop is the name of that documentary.
Out of the Loop, okay.
Yeah, and they shot me for it and a bunch of comics. There's a long story behind the production of that. But,
okay.
But when the final product came together, it focused a lot on the segregation of comedy in Chicago.
Yeah. Well, I heard about, Chicago is probably one of the most segregated cities I've ever been to in the first place.
Right.
So it just makes sense that, that was the case. But I still love Chicago. It's one of my favorite cities, just the beauty of it, the small town feel with the big city appeal,
Yeah.
And I didn't really know anything about Bernie until I started working All Jokes Aside.
Right.
And, that was the name that would float around. I'm like, who is Bernie Mac? And he was working at B's Kitchen.
Okay.
And so it was one of those things where if you work one, you can't work
Chicago,
the other.
all the clubs
LA was the same way.
They're all pissy.
Comedy Act Theater. Like if you work the
Improv in the store were like that for a while too.
Improv in the store. And then the Factory was just kind of like the third guy, the third wheel. Right. And so the same thing in the hood though. Like there was a club that opened around the corner from the Comedy Act Theater, which was called the Fun House. And, the owner of the Comedy Act was like, well, you can't work here. I'm like, dude, we're on the same block. Like, who cares? Like the audience, you're not going to lose your audience.
Yeah, right.
And so anyway, I thought it was just really ridiculous, but we all survived, and then when Robin Harris died, all of us moved. All of us guys that was on that circuit, we moved to the mainstream because there was no other place.
Right.
So we went to the Comedy Store, and so then they gave us a lot of urban nights.
Right.
Right. We had Monday nights at the Improv, and then I think I can't remember, and they called it like Cotton Club or something. It was crazy. I was like, what
shitty
the
is that?
fuck?
Really?
Yeah, I never worked. I was like, fuck that. I want to work. I want to get my name on the wall.
Yeah.
I want to do the nights that Seinfeld is doing, and I
Yeah,
want to
right.
be on when those guys are here, And then I ended up doing my own variety comedy show there at the Comedy Store in the main room for a while called That Time of the Month.
Okay.
And the reason I named it that, was because it was female oriented, once a month, obviously, but it was about the fact that when I would go on the road with, I was on the road with Chris Rock for 2 tours, and I was on the road with Jamie Foxx, and I was on the road with George Wallace. And so when I would come back to town, nobody knew me.
Right.
And so I couldn't get any spots. I couldn't get any stage time. And then I noticed that no women were really getting any stage time. Like maybe there'd be one of us, And so I was like, what if I flipped it?
Yeah.
And so I flipped it around. Mitzi loved me at the time, and she was like, "You're around like funny." And I was like, "Mitzi, I have an idea. I want to do my own variety show here." Well, you can't have the bar. I'm like, "Okay, can I have the door?" She was like, "Okay." She was just Mitzi Shore.
Yeah.
So in the main room,
She
once a
hated me, by the way.
month. Well, either she was just a very eccentric woman,
Right.
Anyway, so
Well, the comedy's filled with people like that.
yeah.
That are just, but she also, I mean, I'm not going to I don't hate her for it. I wasn't her cup of tea. She was weird and quirky. But get back to your story. I don't
Well,
want to
that's okay. No, yeah, that's
because
fine.
it's great. I want to get to a point.
So
after that.
it was really more about if you can't join them, then
Yeah.
beat them. So I would just assemble all of my female So it was 4 women and 1 celebrity guy every month, and then we do dance numbers and we do poetry and spoken word, and an actor would do a monologue. Like it was just a variety show. I grew
Right.
up on that stuff, so
Right,
I just
right.
loved like the Sonny and Cher show and Carol Burnett, and
Yeah.
so that was really what I based it off of, because you opened up with the dance number, and then you had a singer that did something, and then you had but mainly it would be 3 or 4 women headlining, and then you'd have a surprise celebrity guest, and it worked out.
Right.
So we did really well, and then I stopped doing that, and then Fat Tuesday came along,
Right.
and so Fat Tuesday just took it to the next level, and that was like the biggest night at the Comedy Store.
Right.
But that's kind of what we all did when we moved away from the Crenshaw area, doing when we were just doing like hood comedy,
Right.
basically. And then it just became like the golden era of black comedy around that time, from
Right.
from 87 to about 96 or so.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
God, I was out there then. Those were my early years.
Yeah.
Of doing stand-up.
A
I
lot of white
started in
comics
88.
presented us, though.
Oh,
you
really?
know? Yeah,
Why,
because
you got stage time, or you got the room, or
well, it wasn't that. I think black comedy just became so popular. A lot of us were getting sitcoms. A lot of us were getting guest spots on sitcoms. I was doing commercials, sitcoms, tours. So we were just really busy.
Well, that's kind of that basic hater shit, though. Like once you find success, people's point.
Yeah, and then I remember hearing, I forget his name. I can see his face. I can't remember his name. I was at the Laugh Factory once, and so when they gave me the somebody like credit said she was on Def Comedy Jam or something, and he was like, yeah, they'll never put me on Def Comedy, and I was like, you guys have Evening at the Improv.
Yeah,
You know
right.
what I mean? Like there was
Right.
enough to go around everywhere, because
Yeah.
around, if I know you remember the 90s, everybody was doing television productions. We were showcasing all the
Oh, God,
time.
it was- yeah.
There was so much going on. Everybody had a sitcom, and if you didn't,
Well,
you
that
got
was
a
the
chance to guest
development deal
star.
years too. Where
The
everybody was getting
development
on,
deal,
and
yeah.
they were throwing deals at guys. And
Yeah.
I always got in right after all that stuff started. Like I started comedy right after the boom, and I got into LA right after when that was starting to dry up. But there was tons of, compared to now. Well, I mean, it's a different world now, because now everything is so digitally oriented, and guys are doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Which brings me back to what I was going to say. When you did your own show at the Comedy Store, that's how you do it. Is you do your own thing. You
Yeah.
produce your own thing. If you're not
Yeah.
getting stage time, you have 2 choices: sit around and bitch about it,
Or-
or how can I get out there?
Absolutely.
And then you make your own way. That's ballsy.
And I
That's
just,
great.
Well, I mean, so it was just about, okay, who do I have relationships with? You
Right,
know what I
right.
mean? So I'm already a regular at the store. So let me just go to my home base and see if they have an open spot.
Yeah.
But you have to understand, like, it's all about having that one go-to person that you can,
Right.
that's really a cheerleader for you.
It's kind of on your side. Yeah.
And that was Scott Day.
Okay.
And he was the manager at the time of the store. And he was just a good, supportive guy who was, he loved comedy, and he loved good comedians, and he was always, he'd always back you up.
Right.
And so I asked Scott about it, and he was like, yeah, come on. Yeah, do it. What? Come on. Whatever. And so it was just easy when you have somebody like that who's got your back.
Well, you can't do it without somebody like that.
No,
you got to have someone that's on the inside, kind of.
Yeah.
That says, "Yeah, come on in," or we'll give you an opportunity.
Yeah,
or whatever.
and Scott was king at the time. Like he was like everybody had to go. Everything had to go through Scott Day. So now he's like living all over the world. He travels all over the world, literally.
Oh, he's an even better life. Good for him.
Yeah, and he's just like, I decided I was just going to enjoy my life.
Yeah, he's not grinding anymore. I live. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? To travel on your own terms and just do what you want to do.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Cool.
So sometimes he'll post pictures on Facebook about where he's at, and I'm like, I've never heard of that place. What is that? So he's just a cool dude. I can see it makes sense that he does that he's living all over the world like that, because he was always just that free-spirited, easygoing, no drama, no ego. He was just a very good person to like work
in Hollywood. That's weird to find somebody with that.
Tell me about
it.
It.
Rare person, right there.
Yeah, he was very humble and very gracious. So
most people have their own motivation and their own. You know what I mean?
Own their own agenda. What can I get out of it? That was never Scott's deal.
Right.
So. Yeah.
Well, and you were talking about, like we talked about this at dinner a little bit the other day, being outside of the Hollywood system, kind of.
Yeah.
Which, and you got, you got a lot of, you got a long resume. You've been around a long time. You've done it all. Stand up, sitcom, the whole deal. So you've been around long enough, and we were talking about this at dinner. It's kind of, being on ships, in a way, you're away from it. But also, I've gotten to a point with my age where I'm happier. It's good. I remember I used to hustle. Just the auditions and all of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was kind of a...
so the thing about the resume is I remember being so obsessed about getting the next job, getting the next gig.
Yeah.
And I never, ever enjoyed any of it.
Yeah.
Never enjoyed being on the shows. I was always concerned about, being funny enough and being pretty enough, being skinny enough. I was just always overly concerned about stuff that blocked me from being able to really enjoy the opportunity. And I never really got a chance to really see where I was at in the whole scheme of it, because I was just so laser focused on getting the next job and making sure that I'm acceptable and they like me. And so I remember one time, 1998, 99-ish, I thought, I really would like to, I don't have anything else in my life except this obsession to be successful.
Oh, right,
and I don't, I've got money and I've got stuff, but I don't have a real life. And I remember thinking, I need to go find out what my favorite color is.
That's a great way to put it.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And
I was to be
like,
a real person.
I want to go be, I want to have some real friends. I don't want to just have people that I either work with or just know. I want to, build an actual relationship with the human race, you know?
Yeah.
And so I did that. I took myself away from Hollywood, and I started to really enjoy life, and I really started to breathe again. And I love the fact that I wasn't waking up every morning obsessed with what am I going to do today and how am I going to get them to like me. I'm going to call my agent and get some feedback from that audition. I just didn't want to feel that way anymore.
Right.
And so I did that. I went away and sat down and breathed and met friends and had coffee with people and just sat on the beach and started wearing flip-flops and sarongs every day. And it was fabulous. And then around 2007, I literally rolled out of bed looking for a pen, writing material.
Okay.
And it just kept nagging at me. Like comedy kept nagging me. Like, you're not done yet. You're not done yet. And I was like, oh shit, I don't want to get back into that. You know what I mean? I was by that time I was already like, I think I was in my 40s, I think my early 40s or something. I was like, man, I don't want to, I'm liking life. I'm funny to my friends, and I did that. I'm okay with, I can look back and say I did a little something, but, and then I think the Def Comedy Jam had like done a reboot or something in 2007. And then D.L. Hughley asked me to go on the road with him for a couple bits. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And it was cool, but I wasn't really like, I didn't feel that same fire that I did before, but it was funny. It was good. Mm-hmm. But I was like, okay, whatever God wants. That's the kind of how I was. Whatever the universe wants for me to do, I'll do it. And then then let's see what happened after that, and then then there was like talk about me being back on Def Comedy Jam, and so people didn't really know where I was,
Right.
you know. So
Where'd you go? Did you go to Orange County?
I went to Orange County, yeah.
Okay.
So I was living there, so no one saw me anymore. So they were like, well, does she still do stand up, and is she ready? I mean, I'm like, dude, I can do 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So, you know, so then Ollie Leroy,
Okay.
I'm glad you brought him up,
Yeah.
in 2010. He hit me up and he was like, hey, so you want to come out to Connecticut and play with us for a week? And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. So he was like, yeah, I got this role that you'd be good for, so maybe you can come out and do that. And I was like, fine. So, dude, I go there, and it's the show Are We There Yet? I think he was show running that sitcom with Terry Crews.
Right.
And I had one scene. I was there for 7 days. Beautiful Connecticut, and it was fabulous. And I remember thinking, I was looking at the other actresses, and I was just looking at how they were,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, yeah, I'm not in love with this anymore.
What the
Just the idea of being on sitcoms, and there was no live audience, so that threw me off a little bit. So that was new.
Yeah, they do the laughter afterwards. Or
Yeah, but that was okay. It was just like the way that the lead actress was, like, you know, the way she threw shade at me, and the way she was kind of combative.
Well, they were still they were in it.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
So,
They were in
so
what you
when,
came out of.
So when
Right.
you're in that, you don't know how big of an asshole you are.
Yeah.
You
No,
know
yeah,
what I
right.
mean?
Oh shit.
And so
But isn't it a realization to see it and go, oh fuck, that was me.
Exactly.
That
That's
was me.
exactly right.
Right.
That's exactly what I thought. I was like, you know, I got to give her grace because I was that way too.
Sure. Yeah. That's
You
a
know,
good way to look at
and
it. Yeah.
so, but then the other writers on the team were so nice, and they
Sure.
were like, "Oh my God, we're so grateful you're here, and you're one of the funniest." Blah 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 blah. We love your work. I remember you from Def Comedy Jam. So I walked away going, "Wow, that good thing I was a nice person back then, at least to a few, because you know." That's the reason that they hired me, and I just had that reputation of being able to, you know, I'm a professional. I show up, I do my job, I hit my mark, and I get the fuck out of there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they knew they could rely on me for that. And then I started just doing little bits, like I did Martin Lawrence's stand-up, First Amendment stand-up. That was in Chicago, my favorite city.
Okay.
We did it at the Chicago Theater. And that was fun. I got a chance to see Martin again, and I got a chance to see a lot of other people I'd never seen before. I think that's where I saw Tiffany Haddish for the first time, and
Right.
I thought she was great. And so it was just a nice little reunion kind of thing.
Sure.
But then I went back home, you know,
Yeah.
went back to the beach and hung out, and, you know, and I got some other thing that they offered me on TV1. So I was doing little bits and pieces here and there, but I just wanted to work on my own terms. I didn't want to
Yeah.
have to feel obsessed with, oh, what about the next one? What about the next one? And I need, you know, I was just, because that's all I did in my 20s.
Right.
And it just flew by. And I thought, you know, I never really experienced or really enjoyed.
Yeah,
any
you're right.
of
You
it.
never got to enjoy what you got.
Even
I mean,
when
you hit it. You know what I mean?
Even when I went on the road, though, like when I was on the road with with Chris Rock for those two, when I did the big Bring the Pain tour, and I did the next tour that he did. And I just hit the city, go to the hotel, do the job, go back. I never really enjoyed the cities I was in. I didn't get to know any part. I didn't tour. I didn't like look around. And so when I do that now, I make sure I absolutely take the time to see where I am
Right.
and appreciate the beauty in whatever city I travel to, because I didn't do that before. So I'm grateful I got another chance at doing it. And that's why I love cruising.
Yeah, because now you're going to different
Different
cool
countries.
cities. Yeah, that's cool.
And we get to make people laugh all over the world. And so this is what I love about cruising. But the thing I love the most about cruising is the thing that people misperceive. Is that a word? They don't. They perceive
so.
it as, oh, it's like the dungeon of comedy. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like, oh, that's all you have, and that, you know what I mean? It's like, no, like meeting all these wonderful people, going to all these different places, and the way that the audience really appreciates you, you know, for the most part on the cruises is just unmatched compared to when you do comedy clubs.
Oh, it's the whole different.
You know
I
what
just
I mean?
did Dallas for a week, which
And there's not a lot of comedians standing in the back judging
Yeah.
you. Like it's your show. You're there to do your job, and and there's a lot of work involved. Like you already know.
plus you're hitting people on vacation.
And you're getting people
are
on
already here to have a
vacation.
good time anyway.
Yeah, they're there to have a good time. They come to the show expecting to laugh,
Sure.
not to judge or not
Yeah,
to
yeah.
critique you. They're there to have fun. And so I think that takes a lot of the pressure off for me when I walk into the punchline or when I go to the theater.
Yeah.
Because I know that, I'm just here to do my job and I'm going to and it helps me just be the best that I can be.
Yeah, they're already on your side, and the room is usually full, and it's, I mean, excuse me, it's a great...
Oh, am I boring
No,
you
you're
that
not boring,
badly?
you
Oh, my
smartass.
God.
I didn't say that.
I have that effect on people. Yeah, my voice is so smoothing. I just...
No, it's an easier win for us to be out here and do it.
Yeah.
And like, you're right, a lot of people look at it... and that stigma, part of it's starting to go away, where a lot of comics look at ships.
Oh yeah, listen, now it's
Especially now
coveted.
with more and more workers coming out
yeah,
there.
absolutely. Now
Yeah.
it's like super, like, I have a lot of friends who like DM me and ask me about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. And there's a couple of comedians that I've spoken to, women in particular. I go, listen, you have the chops.
Yeah.
You've been around long enough. You've got the chops. It's just a
Well,
matter.
my brother was telling you about him. I know
Yeah.
a few people
Yeah.
that you could do it.
Yeah,
A lot
I
of them
don't-
get caught up in the clean show thing, too.
Yeah.
Where you're like, it's not, people get paid to do clean shows. When you host the Academy Awards, Oscars, that's a clean show.
Yeah.
Tech TV clean or whatever.
Well, I mean, and again, like the people that I know, they're from that background of, you go on, because back in the day we had all these variety shows that we, had the opportunity to do. So you do 7 clean minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they know what that format feels like, except now you get to do 30. And I felt that way in the beginning when I first started doing it. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can. And I was like, well, not just pulled from everything that I had in my whole, library of material. And to be honest, I sometimes enjoy my clean shows more so than I do my adult shows.
Right.
Because now I'm feeling like the opposite. I'm feeling like I need to add more to my adult stuff and
Right.
talk about different things. And adult material doesn't mean you got to be cussing and be blue
Yeah,
all
but
night.
it's a lot more opiniopinated, and you can talk about subjects
Yeah.
you can't really talk about in
Right.
the family show. Right.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't have to be about banging people. It's not
Right.
blue. Yeah,
Right.
I know what you're saying.
Right.
And you're right. I like the clean. Usually, I like I like working with the kids. I used to teach kids
Okay.
comedy and acting and stuff. I love when there's a room
Okay,
full
so
of
now
kids.
that's the thing that intimidated me because I don't have kids and I didn't really know in the beginning how to really relate to them.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh gosh, how am I gonna, I remember the first couple times they would be on the front row and I'm like, oh God, what do I say to you?
Right.
You know what I mean? You little snotty nosed bastard.
I know.
Where are your parents?
Yeah. What are you doing here? Why are you doing it in public?
But now I just decided to, and it's all about your perspective. Either, like you say, either you can bitch about it or, you can embrace it and figure it out.
Right.
And so life is easier when you decide to just figure it out.
Perspective and state of mind is such a big part of every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you said, when you were younger in your 20s, you're killing yourself to get ahead. And you're
Yeah.
like, I remember dragging myself out to the Improv to network or going to functions to network
Oh,
or
God.
parties. Like, I don't want to go to this party, but I got to go because this agent's going to be there and blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so now, but state of mind is such a big deal.
Yeah.
And working on the ships. And the same thing with the kids show. It's easy with kids. If you give kids the upper hand, it's like a Disney move.
Absolutely.
You give them the upper hand somehow.
Yeah.
And then the kid is happy.
Yeah.
And also put your mind where the kid's mind is. That's a 7-year-old kid looking at you.
Yeah.
That's a whole different world to them.
Yeah.
You've been doing this 30 years or whatever years you've been
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
So you're thinking from your mind.
Yeah.
Kids are blown away at 7.
Yep.
So when you talk to them, they're seeing a whole new world they haven't seen.
Yeah.
So if they enjoy it, the parents are thrilled. And
Yeah.
you've won right there, first of all. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But you got to have the right state of mind. And when you said pulling from your library, one of the things when I started doing shifts, I was worried about the clean shows. I was like, oh man, I have at the
Me too.
time.
Yeah.
Back when we had to have 2 different 30s here.
Yeah.
And Princess was 2 different 45s, and I go, I don't know if I had that much stuff.
Yeah.
So I brought everything I had, and you realize if this is where the work part comes in. A, I started writing more, but
Yep.
B, when you look at your old material, you realize some of it, you go, that could be clean if I pulled this out
Exactly.
and changed this subject.
Absolutely.
And there was a bunch of stuff like, oh, this is a clean bit.
Yep.
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 And you pull out the F words and
Yeah.
and you change the focus or drop one line. You go, now it's totally clean.
Yep. Yep. That's
So,
exactly what I did. And
yeah.
so I remember working. You know John Floyd?
No.
I think he's a comedian from. I think he's from North Carolina. I met him a few months back, and funny guy, just an adorable. Like I wanted to just fold him up and put him in my pocket. He's so cute, and he's about 5 foot tall, and he reminds me of that. He reminds me of Leslie Jordan from Will and Grace.
Oh, right on.
And
you mentioned him the other night on stage.
yeah, he reminded me of him, and he was so pleasant. And he pulled me to the side one night. He was like, "Oh my God, I remember you from the Comedy Store. You used to do this joke about hold my purse. That used to just put me on the floor every time you did that bit." And I was like, "Oh yeah." So I dusted that bit off, and I'm
Yeah.
like, that's a whole nother 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I'm just grateful that, I can look at my material, and a lot of it still has legs. A lot of it still, has aged well.
Yeah.
And I can still bring it, update it, make it.
Yeah, a lot of
funny.
it comes back.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? A lot of it just comes back.
I wish I could do my OJ joke though, but I can't.
What's your OJ joke?
It's a whole lot of N words in it.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, because I talk about it. I come from the perspective of the attorneys, and you remember when F. Lee Bailey had cross-examined Mark Furman, and he kept saying the N word like really hard.
Right.
He was like, "Have you ever said the word nigger?" And he was just on and on and on. And so I just said, F. Lee Bailey's probably the luckiest white man on the planet. He was able to say the word nigger on TV and get away with it.
Right.
And then I just, impersonated him and just really had fun with it. And I really wish I could do it on that, but I can't. Because somebody's,
Yeah,
I
no,
know
all it
somebody
takes
would,
one person.
It just takes one person. She did the N word like 15 times.
Right,
and
whether you're black or not, you're not going to get away with
yeah,
that.
so that's the only, and there's no way to like change it because that's the punchline.
Right, right. You need the word.
You need the word to use.
Did you see the trailer for the new airplane movie that's coming out?
No.
It's Liam Neeson plays Frank Drummond's son.
Who's
Frank Drummond was Leslie Neeson. Who's the lead? So Liam Neeson plays the new.
Don't call me Shirley.
Yes, but there's the trailer. My brother told me about the trailer. There's one part in the trailer where all of the characters, their sons, their children are in the movie somehow.
Okay.
So there's a clip where every single one of them goes, "Dad, I hope you're proud of me." And it's Liam Neeson. "Dad, I hope you're proud of me." It's the guy from the Dad. And then there's a picture of OJ, and then there's a young black dude just going.
Nope.
So they owned it. It was funny. It was so funny. I haven't seen it yet, but I heard it's really funny.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I didn't
but
even know
check
there
it
was
out.
one coming out.
Yeah, I knew they were due. I can't wait to see it because you watch that movie now too. That's another movie that there's shit that couldn't be done in that movie.
Absolutely.
The translator on the plane. You know what I mean? The woman. I speak jive. That whole.
Speak jive.
Yeah.
What you talking about, man? Jive ticket. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, it is a great run, and I'm grateful for, all the experiences that I've had over the decades.
Yeah.
But I just love the fact that I get to meet guys like you. Like I would have never met you had we not been cruising.
Yeah, right.
Because I'm not on the circuit like that anymore, and I'm glad about it. There are people that are like, you need to get back out there. It's like, for what? I'm in my 50s now. I'm tired.
Yeah.
I need a nap at 3 p.m. But I just really enjoy being able to like do this. This is cool.
Yeah. Now I like this. And there's like working for different lines is cool. I like Carnival because there's a lot of shows.
Yeah.
So you get to get up a lot and work.
I
on
will
stuff.
tell you too, and that just those reps have really helped me in my land gigs.
Yeah.
I mean, wow. Like I feel it's almost like, how you exercise with like leg weights.
Yeah.
And then once you take them off and you start running, you run faster.
Right.
That's kind of how I feel.
That's a good analogy. Yeah, right.
That's kind of how I feel about when we're working on ships. It's like I got the leg weights on, but when I get off and I do land gigs, it's like, whoa, okay.
Right. Well, you're so in tune and in touch with your act.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And especially if you're here a lot, because you're doing so many different shows.
Yeah.
So then you go into a club anywhere, you could do 2 different sets in a night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And not even sweat it.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. So it's made it a lot better and a lot easier to just make that adjustment. So.
And your timing is sharp. You know what I mean? Like, because you do a little bit of crowd work here and there, and it's the timing's perfect. It's quick.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There's no, hey, well, okay.
Hell yeah. So what else is going on?
So what else is
All
going
right. Woo, stuff is crazy out there. The
favorite,
world is
That's
crazy.
great. Anyway, so where are you from?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah. And I don't mind. And I've gotten better at crowd work too. I never used to really be good at crowd work because I was always very afraid to say something that might be a little too, because I have a way, and I can come off a little bougie and bitchy and arrogant. And, I do.
Oh, really?
I'm
On stage, you mean, or
I think I'm very aloof.
Okay.
Like in my everyday life.
okay?
So I can be. I watched myself one day and I was like, oh my God, like I know I wasn't thinking that, but it just came off like I was kind of being dismissive and
Right.
kind of like, you know,
See,
like mean girlish,
it's
and I
important
don't
to be in
and
touch with who you are.
yeah, and I had it, and I'm like, that's not my intention. So I know that wasn't my intention. So I'm very conscious of, making sure that they're hearing and seeing the friendliness that I'm trying to bring to them.
Well, we talked about this a little bit the other day. When I started out early on, I was a lot more aggressive on stage and angry. And I come off sometimes like a
Now, were
grump.
you angry in your actual life, and that just came that kind of channel?
Oh yeah, when I
through?
look back at it now, yeah, I was
Okay.
definitely I had a
Yeah.
real bad anger issue
See.
all through my marriage, and then when I got divorced, I went to therapy,
Mm-hmm.
and I always like to say I'm on a different path now. I like to say that I changed. I came, like you talk about being present and enjoying your life. I kind of got there after the therapy and
Okay.
divorce.
Okay.
I learned to let a lot of things go, and it's like I felt like I lost weight. Where
Yeah.
I'm a lot more. I came a lot more because back then I had a panic attack in an audition once. I mean, I was hustling to get gigs, and marriage was falling apart, things were going well, and I just wasn't. I was miserable, and then I grew up in an angry family, and I mean, it's just been there. It's been there.
Yeah.
And I learned to let a lot of shit go and open up a little bit more. But I took it on stage. That's why I was such a fan of these aggressive comics. I love Sam. You brought up Robin Harris earlier. I met him
Yeah.
a couple times at the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
He was another guy that was quick on the crowd,
Ooh,
funny as
wee.
fuck. But
Yeah.
early on, when you're doing that, if you know how to do it, you come off like a huge asshole on stage.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
I did.
Yeah.
I did a lot.
Yeah. And I know I can come off that way too. And and I remember two things. I remember when I first started, I would watch a lot of the women, and I picked some things away from them, like what I wanted and what I didn't want. And when I didn't want to have to deny myself of being a feminine woman, and so I was like, I'm gonna dress like a girl, I'm not gonna, because at first I was like wearing oversized clothes, trying to hide my body and trying to distract them from me being like, what, why am I doing that? I'm a girl.
Right.
Just be funny and be feminine, and it's okay.
Right.
And so I decided to do this. I would wear heels all the time on stage, just on purpose, just to make that statement. And it started to work, and it was fine. So then, when you talked about having a panic attack in an audition, I remember I was going through something. I don't know what it was, but I remember I was just super frustrated. I was tired of getting rejected, because I got close on all these big movies like Jerry Maguire. It was between me and Regina King,
Right.
And then it got close on Love Jones. It was between me and this other girl. And then I got close on Devil in a Blue Dress. Didn't get that. And then I almost got Crimson Tide, but Tony, what's his name? Tony, what was his name? Yikes, the director told me, he was like, you look 12, you don't look like you'd be married to anybody, and then I looked, he was like, don't worry, when you're older that's going to pay off. And I'm like, okay. But so I was just really, 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 really tired of just going and just hitting it and hitting it and being close and never getting. So I think I was a little bit bitter or a little bit angry or a little bit frustrated. And I remember when I was done with the audition, I just slammed the door behind me, and they called my agent. They were like, "Is she okay?"
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize I had done that. I was just walking around, and I was just walking around with all this like frustration and desperation. And then, there were people that wrote stuff for me that I still didn't get, like Jamie Foxx wrote Fancy for me specifically.
Right.
And Warner Brothers was like, nope, we already have a girl in place. So sorry. I'm like, what? Yeah. So, that stuff. But then I remember I auditioned for, remember when LL Cool J had his own sitcom called In the House?
Yeah.
So I remember I auditioned to be the quote unquote sexy neighbor. So I remember I wore these high heeled sandals and I wore some Daisy Duke shorts and this halter top. And I didn't know that he was going to be auditioning with me.
Right.
And so I just thought I was going in for a basic, read.
Yeah.
And so then I walked in, it was just a sea of people like sitting in a circle. And I was like, that threw me off. And then here he stands up and he approaches me. He's like, hi, my name is Todd. And he shakes my hand. And I remember I literally felt the like sweat drip from underneath my armpits. Really? And I wiped my armpit and then I reached my hand and I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Anyway, so I was like, yeah, I'm not getting this role. So, like there's been so many times where I just goofed the audition up even before I even like hit the first line.
Right.
So whatever. It's part of the whole process. But I remember thinking, I just wiped my underarms and then was like, hello, how are you? Oh, that's pleasant. And he looked at me like, bitch, are you crazy?
Well, they should give you a heads up that he's going to be there.
That would have been cool.
Because they do, like...
I think they did that on purpose just to see if I could...
I guess.
How I would hold myself with that. And I was super starstruck. And plus, he was really beautiful to look at. And he was tall and handsome. I was like...
He's LL Cool J.
He was the man at the time, so...
I had to sit. Mine was different. I read for Monk a bunch of times.
Love that show.
And Shaloub reads with you. He reads with you on the callbacks.
Okay.
And the way they would do is you would audition in the morning, and then my agent would go, "You got to call back. You got to be back there in 2 hours." Okay. And the first time I did, I walked in. He was there. He said, "Hi, I'm Tony." I go, "Oh, hey." And I go, and I'm like, "I wish I would have got a heads up on that because it just threw me. I didn't know he was going to be there." But after that, I read with him. I never booked there, but I read for him like 4 or 5 times. But he's in the room for the callbacks,
cool.
Which I always thought was cool that he's hands on. He's so hands on. You know what I mean?
Well, he's the producer also, right?
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And so, what other? Oh yeah, I remember I got a chance to read for Larry David, the big time guy, Seinfeld guy.
Right.
And it was for Sour Grapes.
Okay.
And the bit that the character that they wanted me to read for, she was a funny girl. I could tell how funny, but there was a line that he wrote that was so funny. Like it was so fucking funny, bro, that I could not get through it. Like I couldn't stop laughing. And so I'm in the audition, I'm reading with Larry, and he does that line, and I just crack up and I just can't hold myself together. And I was like, listen, I know I'm not going to get this because I can't even get through this, but this is so damn hilarious. Thank you for letting me be here and read with you or whatever. So he just looked at me like, really? That's it? You're just going to quit? You're just going to get up? And I was like, no. I know. Listen, I know that I'm not going to get it, but it's okay. I love your work. Thank you so much. So he looked at me like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But I couldn't stop laughing. I can't remember what the line was, but I remember the laugh. I just laughed so hard. I was crying. I messed up my makeup, and I just totally made an ass of myself. But I was like, well, at least he'll remember me at some point.
That's hilarious. I did the one gig I wanted more than anything. And we're similar similar but different in this respect. I was close on a million things. Like spokesperson stuff for commercials, like 12 spots and a couple of sitcoms and that got to the point where you probably did where you found out you would find out you didn't get a part from the trades or a notification.
Oh yeah.
Like I would see Variety, like Nathan Lane signed on to do this. I go, oh, I didn't get that thing on HBO.
Yeah.
But it drove my wife crazy, and she had a problem with it, and it was causing problems in the marriage.
Sure.
That's where my anger was coming from.
Right.
So I was really having a hard time struggling.
Was she in the business?
See, she was early. I met her I studied improv in Chicago. I met her at I.O. She was an actress for years, but she bailed she did an audition one time in Chicago. And the agent called her and they go, what happened to your face? And she goes, what? And they gave her a hard time about her face or complexion or whatever. And it was a acting/modeling agency.
Okay.
So, and this agent was really shitty to her. She was just, and it crushed her. And this is early in our marriage, very early, like the first year or so. And she quit that moment. She wouldn't act anymore. And we were doing improv together, and she was auditioning, and she was doing a lot of stuff in Chicago. And we were on improv groups in Chicago. She was even on an improv group when we first moved to L.A. And we did the I.O. in L.A. because that's what I did in Chicago was the I.O. I was already a stand-up, went back to Chicago to do it. But then she did I.O. for maybe 6 months in L.A. and then said, I'm not going to do it anymore. And I was like, all
that
right.
modeling industry is brutal.
It was shitty. It was really, the things they said to her were fucking rough. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you're like, fuck. They said something
Yeah.
about her weight. I mean, everything. It was just
And back
rough.
then, there was no filter. Like, nobody, like, considered your feelings.
There was no tiptoeing around it. There was no, they just came right out. Well, your face is fucked up and you're fat. And you're like, whoa.
Which I have to say, there are some points in time where I do miss those days.
Right.
Where, because it toughened us up.
Right.
And it really made us, I know for me.
It also saves you time.
It saves you time.
Yeah.
And it toughened me up. And it really, really helped me evaluate, in ways that I probably never would have before. Now, I will tell you, there have been times where people go, oh, you're just not pretty enough, skinny enough, hot enough, whatever. You're not sexy enough. And I'd be like, no, that's not true. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
But it still gave me the opportunity to look at myself and go, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm enough here, And yeah, I may not be up to what you're looking for, but I'm still not inadequate.
Yeah, you can understand this. I'm not what you're looking for. I'm not your
just
thing.
not what you're looking
I'm not right
for
for this.
But I am, good enough to be what I'm auditioning for.
Right.
So, I mean, that does, but I think that also lends itself to like becoming more mature and becoming more self-aware, more
experience in the business, because then you understand a lot of it's not about you.
None of it is about.
Right. It's
Have
all.
you ever read Bernie Brillstein's book?
No.
Oh my God, you got to pick that book up.
What's it? Do you know what it's called? I'll look it up.
Where Did I Go Right?
Okay. All right.
The title is more than that, but I think if you look it up from just that title, it'll probably lead you to that book. It is so informative, and that is when I realized I met him in 2004.
Okay.
2003, 2004 ish, and his wife was doing some type of fundraiser where a friend of mine who was his sister-in-law, because she was like, you do stand-up comedy. Well, my brother, and she didn't tell me who her brother was. She was like, my brother is in that business. I don't really know what he does exactly. I know he produces. I was like, really?
I don't know what the biggest name in the entertainment
Yeah,
does.
he's the biggest freaking, he's the god.
He started the careers of millions of comics.
Everybody. And so then she said, his name is Bernie. And I go, Bernie who? She says, Bernie Brillstein. And I was like,
I would love to meet your brother.
I said, first of all, he is the reason he's the reason I did like HBO Def Comedy. Like he was the guy who, so she was like, oh, is really? Oh, I just know him as, Bernie, he's my brother. And I was like, okay. So anyway, she invites me to this luncheon that the sister-in-law, that his wife was putting on. And it was a really cool thing. And everybody was there, Sharon Stone, blah, blah, blah. So, all the, cool ladies were there. And then she introduced me to him, and then he gave me his book and he signed it. And so then he asked me a few questions, but I was just really just kind of like starstruck.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wanted to like kiss his ring or something. I was like, shouldn't there be more something I should be doing? Should I kneel? Should I bow?
Be a bright light or anything right now?
Exactly. Like, can I dust your halo? Like, can I do something? And so he was like, just make sure you keep doing your own thing, kid. That was his biggest advice. He was just keep doing your own thing. Just, and I understood that.
It's good advice. Yeah.
Just keep doing your own thing. Don't try to be anybody else. Just be yourself. It's okay. And so then I read his book. My nose was just glued to every line in the book. And it really explained how the business worked. He explained like the whole deal, like when Jim Carrey became the first comedian to get 20 mil.
Yeah.
How it really was not about him. It was about the agents competing against each other.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's really what it's. So when I learned that none of the things that I'd ever done was about me.
Right.
Like not one thing. It's all about who reps me, what their relationship is with the studios.
Yeah, you're just a cog in the wheel kind of.
That's all. That's exactly right.
Athletes go through the same shit.
Absolutely.
This is why these athlete contracts are so high.
Yep.
It's mainly the competition between them.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the product at all. So I'm really grateful that I read that book and had a deeper understanding, and just having met him. I wish I had taken a picture, but I didn't. We weren't like selfie people back then in the early 2000s. We weren't taking pictures like that. But shortly after that, he had passed away.
Oh.
Yeah, but then they, I got a chance to be friends with the family and stuff. So they're like, well, "You want to come to the memorial?" I'm like, "No, I don't need to do that. I'm okay."
Right.
I met him and that was enough. So so yeah, just those moments, those moments in my life where they just became like gems.
Right.
And so I still, listen to his voice now. Sometimes I look at other comedians and go, God, I really wish I could write like that. Or, wow, he really did a great job doing that, or I love his crowd work, and I have a habit of wanting to compare myself to somebody else. And I go, no, it's okay. And then that's why I like to watch different comedians, but some I won't watch.
Right.
Some of them I won't watch because I know it'll just get in my head.
Right.
So, but I love, Tom Papa, I love him. Like you talked about him, Jim Gaffigan, and just a few others that really inspire me. So I just stay close to that,
Right.
and realize it's not even about me being quote unquote the funniest. I know I met one comedian the other day, and he was constantly talking about getting standing ovations.
I hate that. I hate when people put on Facebook. It's really annoying to me.
And I was like,
no, standing ovation. You're like, all right.
So it's like, okay, so what does that mean exactly? Like, is that your goal to try to get people to stand up for you? Or are you just trying to add value?
Right.
Because my job is just to add value.
Right.
I don't, as long as you walk away with a smile, that's enough for me.
Right.
And then afterwards, especially on ships, you got to see these people again.
Yeah, right.
So they stop you, they say things that are very nice, and they want to take pics with you and stuff. And that's amazing to me. That's
right.
more than I could even ask for.
Right.
So,
well, the thing that inspired me to get into comedy, I saw Louis Anderson live first.
Oh, wow.
And then Kinnison live second. And then after that, I started shortly after that. But the thing that inspired me about both those guys, something I think I still do, I just try to connect.
Yeah.
I just try to connect. One of the things I would like, Louis talked about stuff I went through. Sam talked about stuff I went through. So I like to talk about stuff I went through. And a lot of people will go, oh, shit, he's like Gus, kind of. You know what I mean? And that to me is comedy. That to me, that's what makes me laugh.
Yeah. I saw you do that the other night. I wanted to ask you, though, how do you feel when it doesn't go your way? Like, do you beat yourself up about it, or does it inspire you to be better?
Well, there's two parts of it. Like the family show the other day didn't go great for me. I didn't think so. I got to watch it. I haven't watched it yet. But
okay.
First of all, I'll understand that a lot of times it is the audience. Sure. I don't like to blame the audience.
Right.
Only because I've done it so many times that it's worked.
Exactly.
And you go, okay, I know this stuff is working. So this is just a tough crowd.
Yeah.
It's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then there's situations like when I was in Dallas, I was some guy came in the week and I can't remember his name, and he went up before me and we were extremely similar.
Okay.
Very similar.
Okay.
And we worked the crowd the same way. We talked to, you know what a herald is?
Mm-mm.
God damn it! I knew that was going to happen. I want to finish this before. Sorry, I just gotta. That's good enough. Okay. A herald. Okay.
Yeah.
A herald is a long form technique of improv, and it was created by Del Close, and it's the thing that I studied in Chicago when I was there. It's simply put, it's a way of taking one reference and then building three different subplots or stories and connecting them at the end of the show. It's kind of brilliant when you nail it. It is brilliant when you nail it. I've done a lot of heralds. I've only done two where we nailed it or it was perfect. Two. But I don't mention this much, but I kind of do my stand-up to that respect where I bring 2 or 3 people in the crowd into the show and then go back to them throughout the show. And at the end of the show, bring them all back in to close the show out. So I'll do that.
Brilliant.
I like it because it brings the crowd into it's kind of, we talked about bringing the audience into the room.
Yeah.
Also, if you've been doing stand-up a long time, a lot of times you can write them right into a joke. I did 2 jokes the other night where I did it, where I was like, have a seat next to what's his name. So I write them as I tell the jokes, or so they'll say something and I'll go, oh shit, I'll do the bit about the subway and I'll do that and I'll bring it like a broader, and then you look like a genius because people think you just made it up.
Right.
But I'll do that. So, but anyway, the guy that I worked with did the same exact thing before me. So he worked the whole crowd. He got him involved in the show. He was also a lot dirtier than I was. I was working clean that week. And he went up, and I had a hard time following him for like 4 shows because now I can't, if I go back into the crowd. So what I did by the 3rd show was I just jumped on his references and went from there.
Yeah,
as
that's
opposed
what
to
you do.
creating from the beginning of the show,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But on stage, it'll get in my head. But then I got to, I'll be honest, every once in a while, it will bother me. But then I got to remember, you got to let it go.
Yeah.
You be in the moment, and this is the moment.
Yeah.
And then I'm fine. Then I'm good. You know, but if I'm thinking I can't get them, I don't know if it was you. We talked about expectation when you're on stage.
Yep.
Expectation will kill you if you go
Oh
on
my
stage
gosh.
expecting a reaction or expecting to kill. It will always kind of mess you up.
Because I've been on this ship a couple times before, and I remember, coming back, I thought I expected it to be like it was the previous times.
Yeah.
And so I remember making that mistake, going, wait a minute, this is a different crowd, whole different crowd, you know.
Right.
So, that but coming back after that, I feel like it has propelled me into not taking anything, not making any assumptions,
Right.
and it keeps me on my toes.
Right, yeah.
Or should I say on my heels, really?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, okay, all
All
right,
okay. This is how you're going to be.
But it really is good for me to like have that one in a lifetime experience, because I don't want many of them, but just that one experience will always I'll always have that to refer to. Go, okay, remember that one time where you thought it was going to be.
Well, it's a reminder. And if you use the reminder the right way, it helps you get right back to the proper state of mind.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're miserable on stage all the time.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or you're chasing them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're chasing the big laugh to get it closed. You're chasing this. If you understand the moment, you're in the moment, and you settle in. Like one of the things that probably affected me in that family show is I just left the Legend in Alaska. All the shows crushed.
Yeah.
I mean, every show was just monster. Standing ovation, whatever. It was great.
Yeah.
And everything was like money. Family shows, everything. And this one was, I remember getting, and
you want to ride that red carpet as long as you can, and then, but you got to come back to earth and go, okay, this is ground zero again.
Yeah, and every show is its own living, breathing thing.
Absolutely.
Right, you know what I mean?
Comedy is a tricky mistress, isn't it?
It is, but once you learn to embrace it,
Yeah.
it is. It's great. It's fun. It's kind of the whole point.
And it's one of the only neutralizers, the great neutralizer of all show business, I think, because you can't like singers can, go back to your favorite song and, and just bring you back to that moment.
Yeah.
Comedy is not like that.
And it's what you've created, you've produced it, you've put it together, and you're constantly should be turning over.
And it's us, like wherever we are in our lives, people can see it and feel it, and they'll receive it. So that's why it's important for me to make sure that I am well rested, my mind is sharp, and I'm well nourished and well hydrated. Those things are very important for me to bring my best to the stage.
Yeah.
Because there are times where I've been like extremely tired. My voice sounds like this, or whatever. And it's like, and then I drag up and I phone it in.
Right.
Or I want to phone it in.
Right,
then
right.
I've got to dig deep into that next gear and just, bring that energy.
Or you just don't feel right on stage. Like I've embraced things like rest, or even if I can, I would really like to go to the gym in the afternoon, maybe get a nap. And you think when I was younger, I would drink a lot more, and I'd go in hungover.
Oh yeah.
And do shows and stuff. Now you look at that, I'm like, oh, no, I gotta get.
There's no way.
Yeah. I gotta get some rest.
Oh my God. Absolutely.
And because especially mind sharpness, just the crowd reference stuff.
Yeah.
I'm off if I'm not rested.
Yeah.
You know what
absolutely.
I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Or I feel like I'm forcing something out,
right.
You know what I mean? And they can see that too.
And, you can feel it. You can feel it in the audience.
Mm-hmm.
If you're present on stage in the moment and just living it and embracing that living, breathing show, I think that's one of the greatest things in the world, to ride it out.
Yeah.
And whether or not it's a big room, full room, small room, light room, whether or not you get a big reaction. I've done big crowds that are tight with small reactions, but the show's been great and I've enjoyed it. If you're present there, it's a great feeling.
What is your opinion about ending on the big bit, like ending on like a big high?
I have closers. I have a closer for each of my shows.
Okay.
But it's the closer, and if it doesn't hit the way I want it to, then that's still the closer. I don't stay and go, well, let me try and find something else.
Okay.
I have a specific button to each show.
Okay.
And I'll go, all right, I'm going to do this closer for this show.
Okay.
And this closer for that show.
Yeah.
So I still have the closing a big bam.
Yeah.
So in my mind, that's what that is.
Sure.
But I won't chase the laugh. Like I know a lot
That's
of
what
guys.
I'm asking.
Yeah,
Okay.
I won't. If it doesn't work the way I want, I'll button it up. Like, okay, good night. And
Yeah.
leave and go. All right. Well, I guess that was it.
Yep.
But usually I know the closer well enough that I will tell by the show.
By the crescendo.
Yeah, by
yeah.
the
By
crowd
the
throughout the show, whether or not it's going to work.
Yeah.
By then I can go, this bit's going to kill, and I'll close with this.
I love it. I love
Or
it.
I'll change it around. Like I specifically did that closer the other night in the adult show because that young dude was in the front row, and that saved me. I was like, oh, good, thank God he's here, and I'm going to do this bit off him, the kid
Yeah.
from Ohio or whatever.
Yeah.
And that saved me. My big closer I'm doing in the theater, my big closer, my dirtiest 6 minutes or whatever, is in the theater, and I'll do that.
Okay.
And then tonight, I'm not sure what I'm closing. I'm changing I'm going through this thing where I'm thinking about changing one of my closers because it's almost out of date.
Okay.
Which is weird. It's funny. You know what? I'll bring it up. I don't want to get into. I do this gorilla bit.
Okay.
I've been doing it for years as a closer bit. It's a strong bit, and it was a closer for years. But it involves the story is I don't want to go down a hole in this, but me and my wife is about being with my wife. We'll get into an argument, and she's yelling at me, and it's not going well, and all this stuff happened. And I'm at a gorilla. I'm standing outside of a gorilla cage at the zoo, and as she's yelling at me, I look inside. Oh, I'm boring you now?
No, not at all.
I look inside, and there's a gorilla, and we're looking at each other, and he's getting yelled at by another gorilla. So we're both getting yelled at.
Yeah.
And at one point, the gorilla grabs a stick and just hits the female in the head, right? And I go, and then she ran away, and I'm just saying I thought about it. I thought for like a second. This is a second because I'm still getting it. And this goes on and on. And after about a few minutes,
Hey, can I borrow your stick?
well, the gorilla, that's the closer. The gorilla throws me the stick.
Oh.
Right. And the closer at the end is, I go, but I walked away. I was a better primate. And
Yeah.
as I left, I heard the gorilla go, you pussy.
Ah!
But because of everybody's so uberly aware about violence and relationships, I've had people yell in the middle of the bit, violence against women isn't funny.
Oh God.
And that's the closer. And I'm like, now where do I go with this? How do I button my way out of it? And the way I got out of it then was I go, I agree with you. And if you would shut up, you would hear the rest of the bit, and you would realize,
Right.
you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I was able to save it.
Yeah.
But I've had a couple of people react weirdly to that bit now. I don't know. I'm going to try to. This crowd will be okay with it.
I did a bit the other night that didn't work, and I knew it wasn't going to, but it was just so funny to me. And
I love that sometimes.
it was.
Sometimes
I
you do
didn't
stuff
give.
for you.
I didn't give a shit at all. I just did it because it made me chuckle. Because where I talk about breaking up with the guy, with my husband, and I kick him out of the house, and then he says something, and then I say something, and then I go, and then he punched me in the face. And I was like, oh, too dark.
Too dark.
And
Oh my God.
And it was just hilarious. I don't know
To you,
why
it's
that's
funny.
hilarious. Then he punched me in the face, and I just thought it was hilarious because in the bit I'm taunting him,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, I'm saying some smart ass thing to him, and
Right.
then I go, then he punched me in the face, and so, but even though the scenario is true, that part isn't. Of course, that never
course.
happened.
Right.
But people were just kind of like, ugh. And I was like, oh, too dark. Okay, well, all right, moving on. And so then when I have a moment like that where I know, because I knew it wasn't gonna hit.
Right.
I knew. I just thought it was hilarious. And so when I know I'm not gonna get a reaction from it, I just go to a hit.
Right.
I just sandwich it with, some other stuff that I know that's going to be,
Yeah, that's smart.
funny.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I thought it was hilarious though, because I just said it out loud, like to myself, and I was like, I'm going to do this and see what they do. And so certainly they were like, oh, they were appalled. They were. I was like,
Sometimes I love telling a joke just for yourself, though.
Yep.
And then when they don't laugh, you own it. I told that. That's for me.
That was
I
for
love
me. Yeah. Because I've learned how to laugh with myself and laugh at myself.
Right.
And that was something I did not know how to do in my 20s because I took myself so seriously.
Yeah.
And I was fighting. You know how they felt about female comedians back in the day.
Sure, yeah.
So I was always fighting against that narrative, and
Right.
take me seriously. No, I'm really funny, and and all that stuff. And now I just try my best to have as much fun with myself, for myself. Yes, for the audience too, but
Right.
I want to be able to enjoy what I'm doing as well.
Yeah, but being able to laugh at yourself is such a big deal. Like I didn't have that in my 20s either.
Oh, God,
I would tell a couple of jokes that wouldn't work, and I would get scared, and then I would get defensive.
Defensive.
And then attack the audience and then lose the room. And then you can't get them back.
Yeah.
Now I'm just this angry shithead
One
on stage.
time I did a bit and it did work, and I was like, "You guys aren't even trying."
I love that.
You guys aren't even you got to put the work in, you know.
Well, I'll throw that at the crowd sometimes as a joke.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they're not working, like one that I do for sure, I'll tell a joke and it won't work, and I'll go, no, I think I did that right. I'll pull out a piece of paper and I'll look at the. I go, yeah, I did. You guys got to do your part. I did. It's right here.
I did my part.
I did. I nailed it. I crushed it. I don't know what you guys are thinking. So I'll flip it around in that way, but it's
Yeah.
almost still a joke on me because it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I don't want to go, you guys suck.
Right.
I'll do it in tongue in cheek where I'm like,
Sure.
okay, I know it sucked, but you guys could help me out a little bit.
Yeah, at least you could have just gave me a little bit of a chuckle.
Give me a-
Work with me, not against me.
Guys, I flew here.
Yeah, exactly. Please, we're in the Bahamas. Lighten up.
Not everybody can do this. I'm not bragging, but I'm just saying.
Right. Exactly.
All right, let's wrap this up. This is great. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming over here,
Thank
for
you.
going to 2 different places to do this
Oh,
podcast.
whatever.
And you had to chase me all over the ship.
Yeah, I did, but it's okay. I got my cardio in.
There you go. That guy helped you.
Yeah.
If there's anything you want to plug, social media wise, website wise, right to the camera, just do it.
Follow me on Instagram, Stand Up Girl with the U, STANDGURL. That would be me, and just hit me up, inbox me, and let me know who you are and what you're doing. If you heard me on this, come on through, and if you ever come on a ship, come see us perform on Carnival.
Right on. Thank you, AJ. Thanks.
Thank you.
You're still watching? That's amazing. Nobody does that. Nobody, but you did. That means you want more. Pick one of these clips. Go for it. I dare you. Hey, also follow one of those social media thingies.